Dylan Wang and Shen Yue secretly in love, until a director exposed everything on set. For years, fans have wondered if the chemistry between Dylan Wang and Shen Yue was ever just acting. Their unforgettable pairing in Meteor Garden ignited a wave of speculation that never truly disappeared. Even after the cameras stopped rolling and they went their separate ways professionally, the spark they shared lived on in the minds of fans across the world. But no one expected the truth to come out the way it did. And certainly not from the lips of someone behind the camera. It was supposed to be just another day on the set of their new project, a sweeping romance drama titled What the Wind Left Behind. The story was already being called one of the most emotionally intense scripts either of them had taken on. But as production continued, rumors began to stir. The kind of whispers that start in the silence between takes. Extra long glances. Hands held just a little too long after the director yelled cut. A comfort in their physical closeness that even the most seasoned actors cannot fake. It all might have remained hidden. Quiet. Protected. If not for what happened during the filming of Episode 7. The scene called for Dylan's character to find Shen Yue's character asleep under a tree after a night of emotional turmoil. He was meant to sit beside her, brush her hair gently from her face, and whisper a single line before walking away. That was what the script said. But what happened instead brought the entire set to a standstill. As the cameras rolled, Dylan approached with a quiet softness that made everyone on set lean forward. He sat beside her. He stared at her face for a moment too long. And then, as if something inside him took over, he reached down, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered a line that was not in the script. "You always do this, you," he said. "You fall asleep and leave me wondering if I'll ever deserve you." The director did not call cut. No one moved. Shen Yue slowly opened her eyes, and without breaking character, or maybe forgetting she was even in one, whispered back, "Maybe you already do." It was not acting. Everyone knew it. The scene was electric. Not because it was perfect, but because it was too real. The air changed. The silence became heavy. And when the scene ended, the director simply said, "Keep rolling. Don't touch a thing." That was not a performance. That was truth. Later that day, in a private interview with behind-the-scenes media, the director finally confirmed what many had suspected for years. They are in love. I don't care if they deny it. I've seen 1,000 actors fall into their roles. But what I saw between Dylan and Shen Yue was not scripted. You cannot teach someone to look at another person like that. The news exploded within hours. Social media lit up with hashtags, fan edits, reaction videos. Old clips from Meteor Garden resurfaced, now dissected frame by frame like evidence in a love story finally brought to light. But what stunned everyone was how Dylan and Shen Yue responded. They did not release a joint statement. They did not deny or confirm anything officially. Instead, they posted a single photo on the same night. Separately, the same image. A blurry behind-the-scenes shot of them laughing under a tree. No captions. Just the image. It was enough. Sources close to the production began to speak out. Crew members admitted that the two had been inseparable off-camera. That Dylan often waited for Shen Yue after wardrobe. That Shen Yue had a habit of stealing his hat between takes. That they shared one coffee cup instead of two. That once, when filming a rain scene, Dylan kept holding the umbrella over her long after the cameras stopped. One assistant director confessed that the two would often rehearse lines alone, far from the set. They would sit by the riverside and read aloud to each other, sometimes forgetting the lines and slipping into real conversations. Real laughter. Real silence. Their love story, as it turns out, had begun long before this new drama. It started quietly. After Meteor Garden. After the chaos of fame. After they had both stepped away from the spotlight to grow into themselves. They stayed in touch. They met up when schedules allowed. They shared books, movies, songs. Dylan once sent Shen Yue a playlist titled Things I Wish I Said. She sent back a list of poems titled Things I Still Mean. They kept it secret not out of shame, but out of reverence. Because some things, when kept too close to the light, fade. And theirs was a love still being written. In one of the most emotional scenes yet to air, Dylan's character stands in front of Shen Yue's, soaked from the rain, shaking from the fear of losing her. He says, "If I lose you again, I won't survive it. Not in this lifetime. Not in any." What made the scene unforgettable was what came after. The camera stopped. The rain machine was turned off. But Dylan did not move. He looked at Shen Yue, who was wiping her eyes, and said, "Off script, I meant every word." And she, still crying, nodded and said, "I know." Now, the drama is more than just a show. It has become a documentary of a love once hidden, now blooming in the spotlight. Fans are calling it the most honest romance to ever grace the screen. Not because of the writing, not because of the cinematography, but because love is not being performed. It is being lived. Dylan has since been seen wearing a silver ring on his right hand. Shen Yue was photographed recently with a necklace bearing a tiny engraving, the initials DW. And when asked by a reporter if the rumors were true, Dylan smiled and said, "Sometimes the best love stories are the ones that begin when the cameras stop rolling. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the person you fall in love with on screen stays with you when the lights go out." As for Shen Yue, her only comment was a quote posted to her Weibo account the night the interview aired. It read, "Some stories are written in ink. Ours was written in silence. And now, it is time for the world to hear it. No matter how it started, no matter when it was discovered, one thing is clear. Dylan Wang and Shen Yue have never been just co-stars. They are a story waiting to be told. And the world is finally ready to listen." No one expected the aftermath. Not the fans. Not the media. Not even Dylan and Shen Yue themselves. What began as a quiet confirmation turned into a tidal wave of global fascination. The internet lit up with questions. How long had they been in love? When did it start? Was it during filming? Or was it long before they ever stepped into character? But the truth is not always marked by dates or headlines. Sometimes it is carried in gestures, in moments too small to script, in glances that lingered just a second too long. After the director's quiet revelation shook the set, things changed. Not in chaos, but in clarity. The cast moved differently. The crew grew gentler. The cameras began to capture more than just scenes. They captured feeling. Dylan and Shen Yue continued filming with a stillness that felt electric. Every scene now hummed with emotion that could not be rehearsed. In one moment, Dylan cradles Shen Yue's face after her character breaks down in grief. The silence between them is heavy, sacred. He whispers, "I am still here." Not because of the line, but because he needed her to hear it. She nods, eyes closed, as if afraid to open them and lose that moment. And even when the cameras stopped, they stayed. Not in the frame, but beside each other. Sitting on the rooftop between takes, watching the sky turn from dusk to night. Talking without speaking. Sometimes one of them would hum. Sometimes the other would just listen. But the silence was never empty. During one night's shoot, the weather turned unexpectedly cold. Shen Yue arrived late, her hands tucked into her sleeves. Dylan noticed immediately. Without a word, he pulled off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was not for the cameras. The cameras were not even rolling. It was instinct. Care. The kind that comes from knowing someone too well to pretend otherwise. Back in their hotel, stories began to circulate. They requested rooms on the same floor. They would pass notes beneath each other's doors. Dylan once left a folded script with a line circled in red. It read, "If I ever love again, it will be because you taught me how." Shen Yue responded the next morning by writing one sentence on a napkin. "You make every version of love feel new." That was the rhythm of their secret. Quiet, intentional, full of moments that only mattered to them. But secrets are rarely secrets for long. One afternoon, a fan caught them leaving a bookstore in Seoul. They were not disguised. No hats. No sunglasses. Just two people walking side by side. Dylan held a poetry book. Shen Yue carried a single sunflower. Their hands brushed. And then their fingers locked. The photo went viral within hours. It was not staged. It was not filtered. It was the kind of real that people crave in a world full of edits. What followed was a wave of overwhelming support. Fans did not just accept their love. They celebrated it. Edits flooded TikTok. Quotes from the drama were stitched over footage of them laughing during breaks. One fan wrote, "We shipped them for years. But now we realize they were always the ones steering the ship." In interviews, Dylan remained calm, thoughtful, protective. When asked about Shen Yue, he smiled softly and said, "Love should not be loud to be true. Sometimes the quiet ones last longer." Shen Yue, on the other hand, was more poetic. In a rare moment, she spoke to a Korean magazine about the difference between acting and feeling. She said, "On screen, we learned how to fall in love. Off screen, we learned how to stay in it." And still, there was more to the story. The final episodes of What the Wind Left Behind were filmed in a remote village in Yunnan. The landscape was wide, endless, full of sky and stories. There, the crew said, something changed between them. In one emotional scene, Shen Yu's character was meant to walk away from Dylan's, never looking back. The camera rolled. She walked. He stood still. But then, unplanned, he called her real name, not her character's.
Shen Yue.
She stopped. He took a step forward and said, "I do not know where fiction ends anymore. But I do know this. I do not want to live in any story where you are not in it." She turned, tears streaming, and whispered, "Then let's write our own." The director did not cut. He let it breathe. The silence that followed became the most powerful scene in the series. And it was never in the script. Behind the scenes, it became clear. This was no longer just about the drama. This was about their journey. A journey that began with co-star introductions and slowly transformed into stolen glances, hidden notes, quiet confessions. Their relationship, once hidden in the shadows of fiction, now stood in the light. And it was not perfect. It was not polished. It was real.